7th session. Today, we'll be going over survey design. Today, we'll be going over survey design questions, which builds up from our previous session. Before we dive further into survey design, let's first do a quick recap of some components from the previous session, which was titled Preparing for Survey Creation, by going over some steps and tools that are valuable to today's session. Our first fact-finding recap is around research sponsors. If you recall from last session, we discussed the importance of the first step in our survey planning roadmap, which is gathering background data. And part of that first step was to engage with your research sponsor to frame the need for the survey. So to quickly review and align our understanding, take a moment to think through the question on the screen. So what are the 3 questions to be answered by research sponsors? They are: 1, what are you hoping to find when the study is complete, which will help you define overall objectives? Second, it is how will the research help you make decisions, and that will help you understand how to frame the survey in a way that is conducive to intentional decision making. And lastly, what choices is the team considering when the study is complete? And that helps you be mindful of all the alternative solutions or actions that could be taken. Now next, what is the facilitation guide and how can you use it? So the facilitation guide is used to gather background data from stakeholders to inform survey design. Specifically, it enables the researcher to use qualitative interview questions, which once the respondent population answers, the researcher will then be able to translate those questions into actual survey questions. So overall, the facilitation guide is the same as the survey question design table that we worked on last time, and you can see a screenshot of it on the screen. And that template or document is also linked in the speaker's notes for your reference. Now moving on to our final recap component, what is the top line report and how can you use it? So pretty much you should use a top line report to communicate a high level overview of the focus groups that took place in preparation for survey design. And this report can be shared with the research sponsors or other stakeholder groups. We have a top line report template linked in the speaker's notes for your reference. And this completes our fact-finding recap, so we will transition into our actual topic for today. Our learning objectives for this session include designing the survey, pre-testing and iterating the survey, and then analyzing the survey. And again, as a reminder, for the month of September, we will be transitioning to case studies once more. So to get started, please pause the video to take a moment to read this vignette around survey design based on information gathered from stakeholders. So based on this scene, we can see that Michael was gathering information from stakeholders, in this case, the survey committee, to inform survey design. We see that he was worried at first that the information from the committee would not be helpful, right? And it seems that he was looking at the questions that the committee asked at face value without identifying the overarching theme and how to translate all of those themes into survey-specific questions. But his colleague, Nasli, was able to assist, and she took steps that we can presume are similar to what you would do with a facilitation guide or a top-line report. So Nasli pretty much translated the qualitative data that Michael collected from the survey committee to design the survey and craft questions geared towards the main vision shared by the staff, which is around professional development. So overall, this vignette sets the stage for a survey planning roadmap. We've addressed step 1 in our survey planning roadmap during our previous session, but in today's session, we'll tackle steps 2 through 4, which involve building strong questions for survey design, pre-testing, and iterating. Before moving on to step 2, we want to provide you with a quick overview of what a survey is. So we have this quote from David Harris, who's a leader in the field of questionnaire design and qualitative research. The quote reads, "A survey is a conversation between you and hundreds and sometimes thousands of diverse respondents." So as you design a survey, keep in mind that every single question must be answerable in exactly the same way. So as you draft the questions, you should ask yourself, can the respondents recall the information you're asking? Will the respondents answer without bias? And are the respondents willing to answer each question? Because unlike a live conversation, you are not able to clarify ambiguities. So it is crucial that questions are clear and intentionally worded.
The second step in our survey planning roadmap is actually designing the survey, and that's what our first section today will cover. A useful tool that can be used to design your survey is the survey design document linked in the notes section of this slide. This document can be used to identify and document the decisions needed to be made, as well as the informational needs, how to ask the questions, and lastly, how to analyze the data. It prompts you to think through the full survey process, from question through analysis. Once we have determined the decision or decisions that need to be made, the first step in using the survey design document is determining the informational needs. The informational needs should come from the research sponsor or sponsors and interview sample group. To obtain this information, you should host a small focus group with the group needing the information, asking the following questions. First, what gaps exist that need to be filled by a survey? Second, how are we going to use the information as actionable insight? And third, is there any other data sources besides a survey where we can get this information? Collecting this information will help you determine whether a survey is actually needed and whether it's the best method to collect the information. Let's walk through a quick example together. So the decision that the research sponsors are looking to answer is whether teachers need additional support in implementing the K-5 HQIM math curriculum. The information is needed to build the professional development schedule for the upcoming year. In conducting the focus group with the group of research sponsors, the investigator learned the following. The gap in information that needs to be filled by a survey is teacher confidence with the materials. They're going to use this information to build the professional development schedule for the coming school year, and there's no other data source besides the survey where they can get the information. With this in mind, we can move forward in designing the survey. We're now going to pause and have you work through an example using the example from earlier. The decision looking to be made is whether teachers need additional support in implementing the K-5 math curriculum. Based on the decision that needs to be made, identify 3 to 4 items that you might want to collect information on using a survey. There is no right or wrong answer, so just think of information that you could obtain to help you make the decision. Document these in column 1 on Jamboard. In addition, answer the following questions on the Jamboard. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. What are you hoping to find when the study's complete? How will the research help you make decisions? What choices are the team considering when the study's complete? Documenting this will help you write your survey questions during the next step. The link to the Jamboard is in the slide deck notes. And please navigate to a page that has not yet been filled out and document your work there. You'll use this same Jamboard page throughout today's session, so you can just keep it open. Spend around 5 minutes working on this and then come back to the video. The next column of the survey document is how to ask the question. It's important to emphasize that this is determined by the researcher, not the research sponsor. The next couple slides will cover best practices in writing survey questions. For each of the guidelines we're going to walk through, we'll present an initial statement and then clarifying questions that were asked. We'll then brainstorm a revised statement or question following the guideline. The first guideline is making sure that your questions are clear. Survey questions should be written using the respondent's vocabulary, should not include double-barreled questions, and should have a question stem and answer choice that match. The initial statement that was written read as, "The PD I received this year was timely and helpful." When surveyed, respondents had the following clarifying questions. PD was helpful but too late in the year. What do I mark? Which session are they talking about? I had 6 sessions and they were all different. Pause the video and think about how you could rewrite this question to make it more clear. An example rewritten statement is presented here. It states that the PD we received in August on Eureka Math was helpful. This clarifies the question by including the month the professional development occurred, as well as the topic of the professional development. The next guideline is making questions answerable. Questions should include a unit of measurement, shouldn't ask respondents for information that they don't have, and should include don't know as an answer option if necessary. Let's read our initial statement. It read as, I regularly receive feedback on my lesson internalization. Clarifying questions that were shared by survey respondents included, my principal provided feedback at the beginning of the fall every week, but now it's only every month. Is that considered regular? Pause the video here and think about how you could rewrite this question to make it answerable. An example rewritten statement is presented here. It asks, in the past 30 days, how many times have you received feedback on your lesson internalization? This makes the question answerable as a time frame is included. The next guideline is making questions easy. Question stems, or the questions themselves, should be no longer than 25 words. You should also read the questions out loud to ensure they sound natural and flow. Also, be cognizant to not ask for more detail than what is actually needed. Let's read the first iteration of the question. Thinking of your typical student, what percentage of them have improved their knowledge because of the HQIM you have implemented in class? Clarifying questions and statements that were shared include, I have not thought about this. I'll make up an answer to move on and finish this survey. How is typical defined? What is HQIM? I teach art. Pause the video here and come up with an example of how you could rewrite this question to make it easier to answer. An example rewritten statement is presented here. First, the question is only provided to those who have HQIM in their classroom, and therefore an art teacher would not be asked. The rewritten question reads as follows. Think of your students with the 10 lowest grades. Out of these students, please share your best guess. How many have you seen respond well to the HQIM? The next guideline is making sure questions only have one answer, otherwise known as making sure your question isn't double-barreled. The initial statement read as follows. I have a strong understanding of these instructional materials and feel comfortable using them. Questions and clarifying statements that were shared by respondents included, yes, I feel comfortable and have a strong understanding. I have a strong understanding, but don't feel comfortable because I disagree with some elements. Pause the video here and brainstorm how you could rewrite this question to make it so it only has one answer. An example rewritten statement is presented here. I feel comfortable using the instructional materials. This ensures that only one question is being asked. Our fifth guideline is that the question stem and answer choice must match. Let's look at the initial statement, which reads as, my instructional coach and I meet frequently with the answer choices strongly agree to strongly disagree. Clarifications that were shared by the survey respondents included, I think we meet frequently, but what if my coach doesn't agree with me? And we meet frequently, but sometimes we meet for other reasons. Pause the video here and brainstorm how you could rewrite this question to make the question STEM and answer choice match. With this question, it isn't necessarily clear what the survey design is hoping to learn. If they wanted to learn about meeting frequency, they may have asked how frequently they meet with their instructional coach for a specific purpose, with answer choices that identified specific ranges of number of times met. However, this could also be collected with more fidelity from an attendance log. Another rewrite could read as follows. The feedback sessions with my instructional coach have improved my teaching effectiveness, with the answer choice being a Likert scale from strongly agree to strongly disagree. Our sixth and final guideline is ensuring that questions avoid bias. You need to avoid asking leading or loading questions that introduce your opinion and ensure the answer choices are not loaded. The first initial statement read as, because of where students began the year, teachers spend nearly all of their time on standards from earlier grades. Feedback received on the initial statement included, not all students are behind, and that I spent about 60% of my time on standards from earlier years. Is this nearly all my time? Pause the video here and brainstorm how you could revise this statement to ensure it is not biased. An example rewrite is presented here. I spend more than 30% of my time on previous grade level standards. We're now going to jump back into our Jamboard document. Pause the video and brainstorm 3 to 5 questions you would ask to collect the information you're looking for and document them in the second column on your Jamboard. Ensure you're following the best practices and review the best practices guidelines outlined in the document linked in the notes section of this slide. Spend around 5 minutes on this task. The final step to complete our survey design document is preparing to analyze the data. As you design your data and survey, it's important to plan with the end in mind. Think about what type of data will be collected and determine which graphics you'll be able to use. This should also be determined by the researcher and not the research sponsor. There are 3 primary ways to analyze data. You can estimate populations, look at differences between groups, and look at associations between variables. When estimating populations, charts that are useful to use include bar charts, column charts, donut charts, pie charts, tree maps, and pictographs. When looking at differences between groups, charts that are useful to use include stacked area charts, multiple line charts, histograms, and bubble charts. Lastly, if you're looking at the associations between variables, charts that are useful to use include bubble charts, scatter plots, box and whisker plots, heat maps, and a combination of charts. A tool that you can use to inform this decision is a chart chooser document. This document is linked in the notes section of this slide. We're now going to jump into our last activity in our Jamboard. Pause this video and navigate back to your Jamboard and determine 1 or 2 ways that you could visualize each survey question. Document a specific chart or graph in column 3. Spend approximately 3 minutes working on this task and then come back to the video.
The third step in our survey planning roadmap is pre-testing the survey. So you can pre-test a survey with a representative sample of the population of target respondents. And as you do that, it is essential that the questions, mode of administration, and procedures be the same in the pre-test as well as the actual survey. Overall, a good-sized sample is generally 20 to 25 completed surveys, with more needed for surveys with a lot of skip patterns. So having a group of target respondents can help you identify pertinent aspects of experiences or services that need to be of high quality for survey respondents. Then next, you can conduct a cognitive interview with a sample of 5 to 10 individuals from the target audience after having them complete the draft survey that you administered during the pre-testing phase. And some questions to ask during the cognitive interview to gauge their overall impression of each survey question include, in your own words, what is this question asking? How did you arrive at your answer for this question? And how sure are you of your answers? You might also consider some questions about the time it took them to complete the survey, among others. But overall, the main idea that we're trying to get across here is that by conducting this initial pre-testing step, you'll be able to gather solid feedback and evidence to iterate on survey design and questions, which is the final step in our roadmap.
Our last step in survey design is iterating on survey design and the questions themselves. Presented here are 3 tips to consider as you iterate on both the overall survey design and questions. First, surveys that achieve a response rate of 70% or higher are generally thought of as being high-quality surveys. Second, in addition to response rate, you should also be concerned with item non-response. It's important to check the quality of answers by performing these data checks. These typically uncover both procedural or survey problems. And third, use the findings to update future iterations of the survey. But remember that it's important to balance consistency and adjust to increase response rates and accuracy. That concludes today's session. As a reminder for what is coming up for the remainder of the month of August, we have our office hours on Wednesday, August 16th, and our community of practice on Wednesday, August 23rd. Thank you for attending and listening to today's session. Please make sure that you complete today's exit ticket so that we can document that you did complete today's session, and that provides us with important feedback to improve the sessions we provide to you. Thank you.